Good morning, everyone. My name is Fabrizio. I'm Italian, of course. I think it sounds quite Italian. And I moved to Finland about 9-10 years ago. I'm an intercultural father myself too, and I work at Familia as a peer support facilitator. I created and run a peer support group for intercultural fathers and for divorced people within intercultural relationship. And I'm also attending and graduating from DIAC in the Bachelor of Social Science. Familia, it's a pioneer in intercultural support, in support for intercultural family and intercultural relationship. The motto of Familia is together in the world, and that expressed the idea that no matter what our culture is, we are together in this world. We live together. We have to find a way to live together and integrate. We provide intercultural family, intercultural couples and children with different kind of activities. For the mothers and the baby, for the fathers, for divorce or language courses. And as far as training, lecture, and information. The world today, it's more accessible, and there is endless opportunity. People move for work, for studies, for different reasons, and that creates the possibility that you meet someone outside of your country, that you fall in love, and eventually either you stay there or you move back. And we define intercultural relationship, and I think it's important before I talk about that, to understand what is an intercultural relationship. And we define intercultural relationship as the union of two culture, which are the custom, or two or more culture, which are the custom and beliefs and behavior that we have, that we bring from our own existence. So a different view of the reality that we have based on the norms and education that we received. So, you know, all these technological advances and flexible norm have created multicultural society. And actually Finland is becoming very much so, at least in my experience, the last 10 years, more and more multicultural, especially in the Helsinki area. And so it's not a surprise that the number of intercultural relationship or marriage, it's increasing. 20% of the total marriage in Finland as an intercultural factor. And there has been an increase in 40% in the last 10 years on this. We tend to identify intercultural relationship not based on nationality. So we don't look at what is your nationality, but what is your country of birth, because nationality changes. You can change nationality, country of birth. It's more precise, even if, of course, there are Finnish citizens that can be born outside of Finland, and they don't necessarily are intercultural, but we have to find the most precise way to identify the couples. And of course, there are many bonuses in intercultural relationship. They spread a message of acceptance and diversity to the community. If you accept and love someone who is culturally different, you set a good example, especially if this relationship brings children into the world. And we discover new culture and learning new skill. Not only that, but when we explain or we share our culture to someone else, we actually start to observe it in a different way. We were born in a place, we give, we think that what our reality, our view of reality is what it is. We don't even think about it. But when we have to explain it to someone else, when we have to make someone else, our partner, understand what it means, our culture, we understand better ourselves. And that's, I think, it's the base for cultural competence, understanding our culture before we can understand someone else's culture. And intercultural children that are born for intercultural relationship have the experience to grow with two different cultures, and that makes them more likely to have a stronger flexibility to adapt in this multicultural world. But there are, of course, many sources of disagreement or things that challenges that bring intercultural relationship. And these are some topics of disagreement. Values, of course, we talked, I said it before, the most important thing in a functional relationship is to have common values. And most of the time when you come from different culture, you don't have the same values. You have different values. You see things that in your culture are acceptable, in the other culture are not acceptable. And that's quite difficult. At the beginning, people fall in love, they think everything is fine. But that happens for all the couples, I think, all the relationships, not all intercultural. And many of these factors are actually same factor for all couples or marriage. But when you meet someone abroad or when you meet someone here that is from a different culture, you tend to see everything very nice, and they're going to love Finland and they're going to love the country. And you picture very beautifully everything. And after reality hits in quite after a while, with simple things like meals, what type of food you eat, what you drink, table manners, at what time you eat. 5 p.m. for me, it's crazy. I eat at 8:30 p.m. But it's so sexuality. Everybody has different, sex. It's different from culture to culture, and gender roles, male and female, very different. Friends too. What is a friend in certain culture is not a friend in other. In Italy, everybody's a friend. You meet someone, you have a good time, is your friend. In other culture, it's a friend is someone after a while that you can count on, that you want to tell, you can talk about your problem. And so that's a different thing. And of course, relative and in-law. We have a different concept of family. Many times relatives just don't speak the same language. They cannot communicate, so that's an issue. And of course, the upbringing of children. We have different way what we think is the right way to educate, to raise the children according to our own culture. So intercultural couples have to find a third way. No one can push the other in a certain direction. They have to find the third way, mainly for the benefit of their child. Because if not, you're going to have children, intercultural children, that are completely detached. They don't belong to any culture. They're born here, maybe, but one of the parents is from a different culture, and they don't, or both parents are from two different cultures, and they don't belong to anything. They don't belong to the Finnish culture. They don't belong to their parents' culture, and that's because there is always been a conflict, and this third culture was not created. One of the main issues that we found out during our support group is gender role. That comes quite often, especially with immigrant father. Gender, it tends to be understood as something that is actually based on culture, and we define gender based on what we grow up in. It's a cultural factor, and the role of female and male within the couple, it's much different according to culture, and especially men that comes from southern country have difficulty to adapt to a strong woman personality, and they tend to fight that because, especially when they come here, they already feel helpless. Their men role, it's undermined by the fact that most of the time they don't have a job, that their wife is the one that supports them, and so that's one of the first things they have to redefine their idea of male and female, of role within a family. So we have two phases of intercultural father. There is the Finnish father with a foreign wife, and of course, immigrant father. They both face similar challenge. but from this perspective. The Finnish father has the home field advantage. But one of the issues that comes more often is the fact that he pictured, or he described, or he talked about Finland to his partner in a beautiful way. And because maybe they met outside, they met in country underdeveloped or with a lot of social issues. So he thinks that once his wife will be here in Finland, she will be very happy because everything works. Social culture, socially supports, education is great. But when she actually comes here, she's not so thrilled. And that becomes an issue because usually most of the time, these fathers don't understand why their wife are not happy. Why you're not happy? Everything is working here. We have social support, but that's not only that. When you move to a country, not everything works. That's not only what makes you happy. You have to fit in the culture. You have to understand norms and don't feel so much different or wrong. And immigrant father on the other side, they struggle to cope with their own cultural practice while integrating the Finnish culture, especially with children. They would like to pass something to their children, but they have to balance it out with what is accepted in their new country. And actually, one of the great things I saw during the peer support group is that at the beginning, when especially immigrant father comes to this peer support group and they see a Finnish father, they don't understand why they're there because they think they're the only one in intercultural relationship. And at the beginning, you see a bit of a distance, but at the end, they realize that fatherhood, it's very similar across culture. They both have same issue, especially when we talk about that, they talk about their fathers. When you become a father, the first thing I ask them, and it's what happened the first day you knew you became a dad. And both of them say, I thought about my dad. I thought about how my dad was and how different I wanted to be from him. And that came from both. So it doesn't matter which culture you're from, you always face very similar challenge when you become a father. The difference is how you want to give your culture and which value from your culture you want to give to your children. So the challenges that we have mainly in intercultural father are they're struggling to cope with their own cultural practice while integrating into Finnish culture. And that's mainly an issue with immigrant father, but also with Finnish father within intercultural relationship, they have to accept that part of their wife culture has to come out, has to go to the children. So again, it's a balancing. And they feel the system or their partner are preventing them from doing what they think is right for their children. In many cases, it's especially with the way you discipline your children, it's a big issue. In certain countries, hitting their children, or it's accepted as a form of discipline or teaching to children. And here is not, and you have to find new way that you can implement discipline or you can teach your children in a different way. That's just an example, but or table time, the food that they would like to eat only their own food and not, they think Finnish food or all this junk food is not good for them. Food is very important in their culture, so it's very difficult that. And they feel suspended between two different cultures. So, and that's what's going to happen to their children if, we don't support these fathers in the right way. So you don't belong to neither culture anymore, because when you go back home, you're not, you changed. So when you go back to your country, or you feel you don't belong there anymore, and when you come back to Finland, you feel you don't belong there anymore also. So again, accepting the idea that you're going to create a different culture, a third culture for your children, and you're going to pick what is good, what you like from each one of it. And so that means that you have to see yourself, see your own culture, understand what is important and what you value, and understand Finnish culture and see what you value in it and what you pick out of it and you want to give it to your children. And if that doesn't happen, and if they don't, especially if they don't find a network of friends, if they feel isolated, we have, unfortunately, many cases of men that if they divorced, one, because they were not able to find a balance in their relationship, they were not able to solve the issue we see before in intercultural relationship. They have no network, they're isolated, they divorce. Most of the time, the children go with their wife, and they feel that they have nothing left, so they leave. And of course, who pays the price for this is the kids, and that their father is away. That the main common things of this in the divorce group was like, I'm so unhappy. I think my children would be much better if I'm happy when I'm away. But children needs a constant presence of the father or both parents. Doesn't matter if they see you 2 months a year and you're very happy those 2 months. You don't take them to sport. You don't pick them up at school. So that makes a big difference. So what can we do to help father an intercultural relationship? And they definitely need more social support or a specific support. We need to support the integration process so they can develop a critical approach to their own culture, understand what is important to keep. Integration might cause sadness, depression, and sometimes, especially if both parents are foreigner, they might feel tired, they might stop functioning, and especially teenager children or older children, they become the parents. They become the one that fill in the form. They be the one that takes the parents to Kela. Because they went to school, they learned Finnish, but they're not supposed to be the parents. Your children are not supposed to be the caretaker in this sense. And fathers, talking about father, but in general, they start to feel even more and more and more like nothing. Their children translate for them, their children talk for them. It becomes very difficult. And very importantly, we have to find a way to make their intercultural relationship function. Help them with their communication skills, help them to understand the cultural differences, help them to learn the language. I have dads, me too, that after 10 years, their Finnish skills are really, so, I mean, they can communicate, they can go to the doctor, they can go to the supermarket, they cannot have a conversation in Finnish, they cannot share their feeling in Finnish. And if by any chance they were not able to teach their language to their children, they non-communicate with their children. They communicate with their children through their wife. And that again makes them feel worthless. And so bilingualism, it's something very important that we always try to tell them before. Try to teach your language to your children. Try to have a language where you can express your feeling and emotion to your children. After that, of course, learn Finnish. And most of them start to learn Finnish when the kids go to school because they cannot help them with the homework. And because children start to talk with their wife in Finnish and they don't understand. And if they're very insecure, they think most probably they talk about them. But most of the time they don't. But when you don't understand someone talking, most of the time you think he's talking about you or that you do something wrong. And after, again, cultural awareness, most of these people this father come here and things they were doing in their country was cultural accepted. They have no idea that it's wrong. I mean, it's not wrong, it's just different. But all of a sudden they are in a conversation or they are at work or at school learning and they do something and everybody looks at them in a very odd way or they laugh. They don't understand. I mean, I remember the first time I moved outside of Italy, somebody explained me that in Nordic country, you have a very big circle around you, like a circle where if someone comes in, it goes into your space. Southern or Latino culture have a very small circle. We go to the bus all cramped. We don't stay in line. We just don't care too much about physical contact. And that's a very simple thing, but you know, you are usually loud, we move your hands, and you do things, and they're perfectly normal in your country, and all of a sudden they're not. And so just teaching them very few little tips, clue to make them understand, look, if you just, I know that's how you are, but if you do this in this context, you're going to be perceived in a way that you probably are not, but that's how you're going to represent yourself. So just teaching them these kind of things, it's very important. And we usually do a game during the peer support group. We create different tables, and every table has a set, they play a game, a card game with certain rules. They all think that every table has the same rules, but they're different. After 10 minutes, we take 2 players from one table and we move them to the other. And these 2 players start to play with the rule of the other table, thinking that are the same rules. And all of a sudden, they, you know, the 2 couple, the 2 group, they start to, you know, just get stressed because nobody's understanding the rule, you know. And that's how you feel when you come in a different culture. You learn your, you know, your norms and rules, and you think they're the good one, and all of a sudden you sit at the table, everybody plays in it with different rules, you know. And that's kind of a way we want them to understand that it's not something wrong, it's just different, and you have to fit in somehow if you want to be perceived for what you are. And so what do you think is the higher risk of the marginalization of father and intercultural relationship? I mean, what do you think, who pays the price, or what is the higher risk if these fathers, immigrant fathers, or even Finnish father in intercultural relationship don't solve this issue? What do you think it's the higher risk, or the outcome if this happens? Anybody? Nope. Okay.
Well,
So,
I think clearly both mother and father not going to be happy end of the divorce if they were married, but I think clearly the father comes a lot more support.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely, yeah, and I think the price you pay, you know, the higher risk is for the other generation. I mean, we're gonna have tons of children born in intercultural relationship, and my son is 17. I mean, 2 years ago, he asked me, "What am I?" And I never thought. I mean, he never. What am I? Am I Finnish? Am I Italian? His mom is American. Am I American? And it didn't know where to belong. It didn't know where was it, which box. I mean, he never thought about it because nobody ever asked him. But as soon as someone asked him, "What are you?" And you know, people want you to be in a box, to define yourself with something. And we had a long conversation about it, and we talked. You know, we decided that it doesn't matter. You don't have to define yourself. You are yourself with your Italian things, with your American things, with the Finnish things that you like and that are important for you. And that's it. Nobody has to tell you what you are, what you are not. But both my children speak 3 languages, and at least them, they do. And I think we always try very hard to give them a critical perspective of each culture they're in, but not too judgmental, but based on fact. You know, you see what do you like of this? What do you like of this value? What do you like of these other values? What do you like of this? But before you arrive to this, you know, with your children, you need to go through a process of understanding your own values, your own culture, and the values and the culture of the country you live in. You can't just deny that they're not good. They're not what you want. We're not raised that way. So it's a lot of work to do with immigrant fathers in this sense. Yeah. So, yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to comment, would be interesting also to hear your opinion about like what's the value of the continuum of the culture of the country.
What do you mean?
I mean, there's a lot of talk about multiculturalism
Mm-hmm.
in the context of a local culture, usually a national culture.
So,
like how, like, to what extent intercultural families should enable the children to live by the culture of the country.
Of the country where they come from or where they are in?
Where they live. Yeah.
Where they live. So let's say Finnish cultural. I mean, if I'm a foreign parents, and how much should I let my children integrate or live the values of Finland?
Yeah,
you mean?
or even how much is the local culture allowed to have expectations over the people who live in the country as how should be lived.
I mean, what I
the cultural expectations in comparison to the freedom of the multiculturalism.
Okay, so I think if I understood correctly, I mean, you know, if you have children that are from intercultural relationship, I mean, we have to accept that these children or this generation will not be 100% Finnish in the way we see Finnish kids, or in the way we think, or the culture should be given. They have differences. Of course, they have to. I mean, you have many situations. We had a father that came from a culture where, especially girls, are not supposed to do certain things, are not supposed to do other things. There is a limit in which your culture, where you come from, you have to pass everything. You have to integrate them. You have to somehow to give what is good, and of course, pick what you think is good of it. It's very personal. It's not like what is good for me, but in general, you have to make sure that these kids fit in at the same time. So they have the skill and the knowledge to interact and be accepted in the Finnish society, but at the same time to maintain certain cultural aspects that are important. At the same way, these children will bring something into the Finnish society that it might be very positive. I mean, not necessarily everything here it's good. There is interrelationship, the way people communicate. There are things that might be improved, and this new generation will bring that into the game if they're allowed to that. So I think more and more we're going to see that, you know, and they have to be accepted. That's how a multicultural society come out. It doesn't mean you have to eradicate Finnish. The Finnish culture is going to be a mix of everything else. It's just these kids are going to, you know, take what they think is good, and it's up to the parents to do that and to the teacher in school to accept that, though they have other different way of communicate. And Finnish kid might learn from it a different way of talking, a different way of sharing feeling that is maybe here is not very common, but it might be actually good. So I don't know if I replied to your question more or less. So as form of support for intercultural father, at least in Familia, we found out that at the beginning we were doing more one-to-one. So if we were creating space where they could come once a week or twice a week to talk, and we would help them more on the practical way to fill in forms, or you can go there or you can do this. But eventually we realized that peer support, so putting them together, was probably the best way to help them, mainly for networking. So to give them other fathers in their same situation, and at the end to you know, when you are alone with your issue, you think you are the only one with it. It becomes huge. But when you talk with other dads or other people that have same issue, they lose grip. They lose the power. They become a little bit more okay, and you see other people with the same issue, with the same problem, that might have a different approach to solving it, and they might give you good tips, and you might learn from each other. So it's very I mean, it's flexible because people are giving and receiving in many different ways. And the most important thing is that I usually do when we start a peer support group. I think that's for any peer support group but especially when you have different culture, is to make sure that they're not judgmental with each other. Everybody thinks you have the right answer. So what I tell them, it's always there is not a right or wrong feeling. There is just the way you feel based on where you come from, and your advice might be good for you, might not be good for them. They don't have to take it, but it's just sharing different ways, and everybody can pick and choose what they want from this. And nothing is wrong or right. It's just a different way. Oops. So, like I said, I'm still a student. I'm graduating in a few months, and I did different, placement. And one of my placement was at Familia, and they asked me to do a survey on intercultural relationship and stress factor within. So I did this survey with about 120 respondents. And one of the main things that came out, especially 85% of the respondents were women. And most of these women, of course, with their foreign husband, the things that came out constantly, he doesn't have any support. He doesn't have anywhere to go. He doesn't talk with anyone. He's always home. He's depressed, kind of similar issues. So we decided that there is a lot of support for mother and children, even for foreign mothers, immigrant mothers, but not much for fathers. So we decided that it was useful to start thinking about a peer support group for intercultural fathers. And at the beginning, together with Miessakit, with Ismo, we created four meeting. And after that, we realized that it was actually good, that there were many fathers coming, 12, 13, 15 participants at the time. And we actually had to close the group because I was the only one doing the facilitation, and it was just a bit too much. And so during this, basically from October 2018 to February 2019, together with the father, they were kind of like my guinea pig. We just came up with many, many topics that they wanted to talk about it. And the more we came out, we decided what was useful, what was good for them. And so we picked out of this old proposal 13 session, and the father group now is running together with the city of Vantaa once a week, and in Helsinki once a week. And we have quite a lot of participants. Again, we had to close the group because there were too many in it. And after 13, 14, it's just impossible to deal in 2 hours or 1 hour and a half. So the idea of the father group is to give them a space where they can share thoughts, concern, reflect, and about being a dad and a different way of being a dad. So these are some of the feedback we got from the father of the past group. And again, we are all having similar experience. It's not easy to make friends, provided a good forum for that. Many of them still very active together. they all connected more or less through Facebook with this page. It's called Expect Dad. And they go once a month to a, they call it pressure release valve meeting. So they meet once a month between themselves. And I'm very proud that they have a space. And in this group, there are even the Finnish dad within intercultural relationship. And I think it's very, very important that they stay together. We talk about masculinity, and I was a bit and not sure if it was the right topic to talk about it, but it ended up that actually it was very important for a lot of them to redefine masculinity, especially if they have a boy. Some of them came in from culture where it was not allowed to show emotion because you're not man enough. So we talk a lot about how to raise a boy in a different way, in a different way. Give him the space to cry, to feel emotion, and not to be judged as a girl if you do that. And many cultures like that, and they were very happy to do that. And again, here to be listened. A lot of them need to be listened. Some of them need to listen. Many of them don't talk at the beginning. They talk after a while. Some of them just want to talk. They just have so much stuff inside, and I think it was very good for them to do that. Yeah, again, here it's the connection with other dad. This group has helped me a lot with that. So based on the experience gained from these groups and some theoretical research, I have developed together with Familia also. That's my thesis too. It's a facilitator manual to run a peer support group for father within intercultural relationship or for immigrant father. I mean, we design it for anyone, people, organization, public service that want to work with men within a parenting framework, immigrant men. The manual have a 13-week course covering different topics. We're actually working on another 13 weeks with other topics also. And some of the topics we talk at the Fathers Group are communicating with children, understanding how fatherhood transform men, and how to transform the relationship with your partner too, and how to respond to children behavior, discussing healthy masculinity and men's health. The manual is structured in a way that covers basically everything. How do you start the peer support group? How do you promote it? How do you facilitate it? How do you set up the different meeting? What are the topic and the exercise that you do in each one? And yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much.